por que os board games não são ainda mais populares.
So I've been thinking a lot about why board games aren't more popular when there are all these like amazing games out there. And despite the rapid evolution in the board game industry that we've been seeing, I think most people are still just busting out their old copy of Monopoly once a year. Honestly, I don't know that many people who actually regularly play board games, but I think it's important for us to just stop and think about why that is and consider what makes it difficult for some people to want to play board games. I think the most obvious reason that comes to mind is just that, well, board games are manual. And unlike with online competitive games like Overwatch or Dota, you don't really get that instant gratification or that instant adrenaline rush when you play board games. And usually it's turn by turn, someone has to get a group together, someone has to learn the rules. And I think for most people, compared to playing a game like a first-person shooter or a MOBA, I think board games can feel a lot like work. Another thing that I started to realize is that not a lot of people know what kind of games are out there. And that's not on them, I just don't think people have been exposed to games outside of Othello or Connect 4. And even if you love playing board games, I don't think it's really clear where you should look in order to dive deeper. I know when I was first getting into board games, I had no idea that there are these things called board game shops where they had hundreds and hundreds of games in a game library and you could just go and borrow them at the store and play them for free. I never knew that there was a site called Board Game Geek where hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, at least 12 people were gathered to talk about board games, where they posted news about board games, their reviews. So I think that part of it is just that people haven't been exposed to a lot of modern board games. But I think it's more than just that. I think that there's still, for better or for worse, or whether it's true or false, I still think that there is this negative stereotype associated with nerd or geek culture. What I don't think people realize or understand is that it's not just nerdy or geeky board games that are out there. I think that there is a board game experience for everyone. From my perspective, to some degree, these reasons that deter people from joining the hobby will always be there. I think that these deterrents are actually just characteristics that are intrinsic to the medium, and that in some ways they kind of define who we are as board gamers and they define the hobby itself. So even though board games aren't more popular than they could be, and there are these kind of like speed bumps along the way that maybe hinder some people from wanting to discover the joy of board gaming, I think that's okay. Now, I can only speak for myself, but part of the reason why I love board gaming so much is because it sort of feels like buried treasure. Because it's not an easy experience to find. It takes work to find it and to delve into it, and you sort of have to cultivate this interest for it. But once you discover it, and you feel that joy from playing board games, it's something that you kind of want to experience over and over. So would I like to see this hobby become more mainstream and popular? Yeah, but I'm also not worried that we're not gonna get there. I think when you look at the trajectory that we're on, I think the hobby is becoming more and more mainstream every day. And when that day inevitably comes, I think I'm gonna miss that feeling of surprise and of connection when you discover that one of your close friends loves board games too. Or seeing the light bulbs go off when you introduce games to non-gamers and they're like, hey, this is pretty cool. But until that day comes when board games are just totally mainstream, I'm gonna do my best to just enjoy things the way they are, just as best as I can.